How to consistently kill a buck on 5 acres. Maybe your property's 10 acres, maybe it's 4 acres, whatever. The point is all the same here. It's possible, and it's possible to do it consistently, guys. You just have to have the right 5 acres. If you own that 10 acres, you need to know how to manipulate that property, in the right fashion. And if you're asking for permission, you need to know what to look for to make sure that you're getting on the right 5 acres and not wasting your time. So let's say you own the property. Food, cover, water are the 3 most important things that we talk about as deer hunters when creating the perfect property. Which one's most important? A lot of guys are going to say food, have a food plot, whatever else. And I get it, and I understand it. I know where they're coming from. I heard somebody say in a video that you have to have the food, otherwise the evening movement, it's not going to be on your property. You're never going to be able to consistently kill deer and all these other things. And I get what they're getting at, but I respectfully disagree. If you have the cover on your property, then you have the bedding, and if you have the bedding, then you have natural browse, and if you have natural browse, you have water. You might not realize it, but you also have water because there's water content within that natural browse, and that's actually how deer get most of their water consumption, is through browse. So if you can at all manipulate movement, let's say you own this 5 acres, 10 acres, or this small property, I'd really focus on putting in cover because you really have all 3 aspects. If you can strategically place that or have this 5 acres in a location where you can have the food or where you can have the bedding and the food is not too far away, then you've already set yourself up in that transition area from bedding to food. Now let's say you don't actually own this property and you're just looking for the right area or the right small piece of property to hunt. You don't own anything and you're just asking for permission. All right, now we're gonna hop on topographical maps and all these other maps and we're gonna look. We're gonna try and find the bedding, and we're gonna try and find the food source, and we're gonna try and stick ourselves right in between. We're gonna get permission right between the two. That's the scenario that I was in last year. Last year I killed a good 140-inch deer or so on 5 acres, and only on 5 acres. And I'm planning to do it again this year because this property is set up correctly. I had to make no timber stand improvements. I didn't plant a food plot. You know what I did? I hung a stand. But all the research prior to hanging that stand and picking that right property, which is actually only about 4.87 acres, is what ultimately led to my success. So this property itself had pretty subpar cover to begin with, which normally, once again, from the outside looking in, a lot of guys would say, I probably am not going to be able to kill a mature deer in daylight on this property. But the thing that this property had going for it was that it was close to a bedding area, and in this case the bedding area was a topographical feature. It really wasn't even a thicket. It was a topographical feature that the deer liked bedding on for a vantage point, and where my stand location was just out of sight of that. So by keying in on this topographical feature and picking up on these deer crossing this certain intersection every night, I backtracked and I figured out where these deer were exactly bedding. So now I'm on the property or close to the property in which they're bedding, and I also know where they're eating. So if I can just slam myself in between, then you're in that transition area. Ultimately, you're going to have consistent success as long as you don't pressure them up in that bedding area. And that's exactly what I did, and that's exactly how I plan to kill another buck this year. 3 actually, that I have my eyes on only 5 acres, guys. So it's definitely possible. Ideally, if you have the property and you own the property, you want to go in there and you want to manipulate it somehow. You do some timber stand improvement, maybe create more browse, more cover, all those things. And if you don't own the property, hop on a topographical map, hop on a satellite image, and really try and pick apart where those deer are moving. Maybe it's an early season food source, and you got a deer on camera early season. Well, I'd try and find soybeans. Soybeans are a very nutritious, attractive food source in the early season. Maybe it's the last standing cornfield around for miles and it's late season, or maybe it is still standing beans. Depending on the time of the year and depending on the food source, you can pick out these properties and get permission on the right property. Sure, there might be 40 acres next door that somebody else is hunting, but if you have the right 5 acres and it is not necessarily strategically placed, but placed in the correct location, so that is it's a transition area for these deer to move from bed to food, then ultimately you're going to set yourself up for success a lot more consistently, guys.